Well, hello friends, and welcome to video 1 of the punch needle along. So first of all, I have to apologize for my voice. It sounds a little bit strange because it is allergy season for me. So middle of August, that kind of always happens to me. So hopefully I'll be okay. I've got cough drops and tea and we're going to get going. But I thought the first thing that I would do was show you my progress on my bird that I had started. So this is the bird in the summer pattern, okay? And, I'll be doing several projects, but I thought this one was really fun. I wanted to do this for my crochet room. And I'll be mounting it on this piece of wood right here, okay? And I'll talk about that in a minute. And I'll talk about all the supplies and how you prepare and all that kind of thing. But since I was in the middle of stitching this, I have just this left right here with the Riley Aqua color, and then I'm going to fill in all of the background with chamomile. And so I thought it would be kind of nice to maybe do a few stitches in the beginning, just so that you can kind of see what I'm doing and talking about. And then after I go over the supplies and everything, then we can come back to this and finish up this section. But the first thing I wanted to tell you is you're working from the back side. So this is where you trace on your pattern, you put it on your hoop, and this is what it looks like. And so the actual finished is the other side. Okay, so that's what it looks like on the other side. And it's that really fun texture. And I'm using chunky thread. And of course, I use this for stitching and for crochet and everything. And it's my 100% cotton yarn. I have 40 colors so far. I have 8 more coming soon. And I really wanted to do punch needle with it because I love the texture of it. I wanted to be able to do like medium-sized patterns. You can do punch needle. You can do small, of course, because of the weight of this, which is kind of like a baby weight yarn, okay? But traditional punch needle is either done with DMC, which is very fine, with small stitches. So it would take you quite a while to fill this up, which is fine. I mean, it's not a race, but it's very fine. Or you can do it with a larger scale of yarn or with wool strips so that you could do rugs. I thought the chunky thread weight would be perfect for just that in between, where you can still do small decorative projects and you can do larger projects as well. And because of the weight of it, and it would fill in much faster because of the weight, from doing embroidery floss, which is what I had done before. I used to do patterns, punch needle patterns years and years ago, and I used DMC floss as well. So in order to do the chunky thread, I'm just going to start punching as I'm talking, and I better put my readers on. I like to see exactly what I'm doing here. So as I go in, I want to go straight, and I hope, because I'm going straight, I'll try to go on a little bit of an angle just so you can kind of see what I'm doing. Let me see if I can look in the camera and see if you can see at all what I'm doing. I'm trying to pull away so that you can. I'll go a little bit slower than I normally do. And I'm just doing stitches about a width apart as the size of the needle, the width of the needle. That's a good gauge to go by. And I start by outlining, and I am going on a slant so you can see, but I normally do go straight up and down as much as I can because I don't want to run into the stitches in the front that I've already done. And so let me just kind of move that. So I typically start with the inside first and do the outline last, just like I talked about. And I move the hoop as I need to. I am doing it on the table right now because I'm filming on a table, but I use this little surface when I'm on my lap. I've got this ironing board that I've shown you before, how I make my DIY ironing boards. And so I just use that on my lap, and it's perfect because then I can rotate and pivot when I need to, and it's a hard surface. And of course, I don't want just this to sit on my lap because I don't want to punch into my lap with my needle. And so you can see that I'm just turning as I need to. And I have this little space right here. So I'm going to go back and fill that in instead of going all the way around. While I'm here, I'm just going to fill that in. I'm punching so that I won't be able to, I don't know if I can show you that right now. I'm punching so that I can see the eye of the needle towards me, the opening of the needle, and the yarn is behind that needle, and we'll talk about that. So I'm always keeping slack in my yarn. I don't want it too tight. That's when we skip stitches on accident. You can be going along and all of a sudden you're skipping stitches and you realize there was too much tension on your yarn, like it was caught on something. So I always make sure I have a loose enough yarn right there. And so now I need to go, this is a good spot to show you what I do when I need to go from here, because I'm finished here. I want to start here, but I do not want to skip that far. I rarely will skip that, make that long of a stitch. You know, maybe I'll only do a couple, skip over a couple. And so this is how I end my yarn to change a new color or when I go into a new spot, okay? So I turn it around, and I hope I can do this so that it's close up so you can see. So you can see I leave my needle in my yarn. My yarn in my needle. And then I'm still leaving it threaded right there, but I'm just taking my scissors and going in between that and snipping even with that. And if I don't get it quite even, I can, snip it down even later. That's fine. That's not a problem. And then my needle is still threaded. Okay. And I may pull up just a little bit just to make sure that doesn't come unthreaded. You can start with having your tails in the front and then trim them off even, like I just showed you. I prefer to start with my tails in the back. I mean, then I'm just not working in the front unless I have to. I usually don't typically turn it around and work on the front unless I'm just changing colors, just like what I showed you. And so then I will just pick up where I left off, and I'll just start in, and I'm leaving between the rows probably about 3 to 4 threads of the cloth, the weaver's cloth. Now this weaver's cloth is something that I had to develop this certain weave for chunky thread, because I tried all of the others on the market that were available for floss and, for rug hooking and things like that. And how these stitches stay in is through tension of the weave. And so I had to have a certain weave for the chunky thread. And so I've got weaver's cloth that's packaged, by the yard through Riley Blake Designs. And so it's nice to have that package of a yard, so you can just cut off what you need. Okay, once again, I'm going to end there just so that when we'll come back at the end of video and work on that. But I'm going to show you again how I cut this off. I always have my needle in, and then I'm just going to take these pointy scissors. I like these long blades so that they can get in there. And I'm just going to trim even. Okay, and pull it out. My needle's still threaded. If it came unthreaded, I can thread it again. That's not a big deal. But knowing that I'm going to be using this color again, then I just keep it that way. Okay, so this is what it looks like. And right here, where these little chicken feet are, you can see they're kind of going wide, but when I put the chamomile and do other punches around it, it's going to make these stand straight up and have that definition in between them. Okay, and that's kind of how the circles look right now too, but when I go chamomile around there, there's room. On the front, it doesn't look like it, but on the back, you can see that there's room for a couple of rows of the chamomile or the background, whatever you're going to use, in between. You can see that there's room for a row or two in between, so they will have that definition. All right, so let's talk about how I get set up. So first off, I have my pattern, okay? And the patterns will have instructions on how to do it, but here on my, you know, it's just traditional punch needle patterns, instructions, but here on my channel, as I'm doing this during the punch needle along, I'm going to be, you know, telling you tips and tricks of what I like to do. So here's the pattern, okay, how it looks for this, okay? I do want to tell you that because you are tracing on the fabric, you know, if you laid this right on here and trace just like it is, because I'm working that way on the wrong side, then my bird's going to be facing the other way, which is no problem for me. If I want it to face the other way, then all I would have to do is when I put it on my light box, which is what I'm going to show you next. I left this taped to my light box. I would just simply turn this over face down. But when you turn the light on, you will see the lines just as easy. And then so you would just trace it the other way. Like the rest of these in here are not, well, the flower is directional because it's leaning towards that way. But this is all the same on both sides, so you wouldn't have to worry about that. And I don't know if I even want to say worry. It's just, I just want to point that out, that if it's important to you that your bird or your flowers point a certain way, then you just want to be aware of that. So all I do with that is I tape that. I use my washi tape to tape that because it doesn't tear my pattern and it, you know, doesn't damage anything whatsoever. And then, of course, I use a pen, and let me grab my cloth. So this is Micron 0.5. I've used this for years and years. This is my favorite pen. When I used to publish toll painting books for 12 years for Provo Craft, then I used this in my painting. I continue using it through my quilting, through my paper crafting, through everything. It's great. This is my pen that I use to write on quilts, to label quilts. It will not smear. It won't, you know, do anything like that, and it's permanent. And so it's perfect to trace on a pattern. You do not want to use a friction pen because you don't want your lines to disappear, right? So you want to use something that you can see. And that simply is all it is. You could use a pencil if you wanted to trace it on. If you can see those lines, then that's fine. And so this is the package of the weaver's cloth, specifically made for chunky thread. And so here's my open piece right here. I just cut out a square that's about 2 inches, at least 2 inches larger than the hoop size. Okay, now the hoops that I'm using is this right here. This is what it looks like in the package. This is the Morgan lap stand. So it's also a stand, as you can see when I flipped it over. And this is the 10-inch, 14-inch combo. So this one is 14-inch, which is perfect for the oval. This is 10-inch, and then they have a smaller one. The 10-inch becomes the bottom of the stand, but if I was doing something smaller, I would put my cloth in this, and the 14 would be the stand, you know, that I'm punching through. Okay, and then I've got this leftover piece right here of the smaller one, and I could use these two sizes. Of course, I have two sets. That's why you're seeing this is the leftover from these two that I already have in the hoop. This is the brand new set, what it looks like. Okay, and it's got the legs in here to put together and all of that stuff. Let me set this over here. It's got instructions on how to put the legs on. They just snap in. You know, easy peasy. And so that's the hoop I use. The reason I use this kind of a hoop and not just a regular embroidery hoop, let me pick that other one up and show you, is you need these to be drum tight. You need you can't just use a regular hoop. You need to have it on a stand because you need your hands up here to work, and the fabric needs to be very tight. And so by using the Morgan, let me see. Let's see, I undid that. I don't know, did I not loosen it? Okay, there we go. All right, so let me turn it so that you can see that there's an inside ridge here. And then on the inside of that, there's a ridge that goes in to this inside ridge. Hopefully you can see that. And that's what keeps your fabric tight and tighter than a regular embroidery hoop. Okay. So I use those, love those. If you are doing a pattern that may be a little bit bigger than the hoop, you can always reduce the pattern a little bit if you want to. And sometimes you may want to reduce the pattern because you may be finishing it on a certain something that needs to be a certain size. So, you know, you can always do that. And so all I do is I just lay my cloth over there, take my pan, of course, the light would be turned on, and I just trace over it. I also use the washi to tape my fabric so that it doesn't slip, and I simply trace over it. I also, within the pattern, there's provided the colors that I've suggested in the pattern. That doesn't mean that's the only color combination that you can use. You can simply use any colors. This is just like a box of crayons, right? There's 40 colors of my chunky thread yarn to choose from. You could go with a deeper palette or a brighter palette or more pastel or, you know, whatever you wanted to do. I just, when I drew these up, I simply just colored them with a combination that I thought looked great. And that doesn't mean that it's the only great combination, okay? So, but for my sample, I am sticking with these colors just so that you know exactly what it looks like. And so I went ahead and labeled right here. It tells you what color everything is. I went ahead and labeled it with my pen. This gets covered up. So, of course, this is covered so you can't see that, but I had written Riley Red in here. I had written lipstick in here. I had written denim. And you can see Riley Aqua I wrote in here. I even put, you know, like LS. So I knew that was lipstick in the circles. I put a P in the little eyeball for Pebble. And then these are Riley Green. And so I labeled everything so I didn't have to keep checking the pattern. I just wrote it down and then I knew what colors of yarn to grab. And again, that's never going to show on the front or the back or anything. So I think that's really convenient to do that way. And so once you've got that traced on there, then you simply just put it on the hoop. There's instructions in the hoop. If you've never put anything on a hoop, it's just, you know, you take the top off, you put the fabric over the bottom ring and then put the top ring on. And then I just stretch it, like I said, as tight as a drum, as tight as I can get it. You know, it loosens up a little bit as you punch along, and then I just kind of stretch it out as I go. I do also, in my little tool bag, I keep everything in here, my punch needle and everything in here in a little project bag. I do have some needle nose pliers, and I will use those to help me tighten that wing nut there so that I can get it really tight. These are Fisker's brand. I think I just got those at the craft store. I don't know, I've had those for a long time. And so that's the fabric, that's the hoop, you've got the pattern, and the needle looks like this. This is the Ultra Punch needle. Let me grab a new package so I can show you what that looks like. I did a lot of research when I decided to do this and used several different needles, and this was by far my favorite for the chunky thread. And so this is a 3 needle set, meaning it comes with this, but 3 different size needles, okay? And I find for my chunky thread, the largest needle works perfectly with my chunky thread. So here's the Ultra Punch. It comes with a couple of needle threaders, and all the directions are in here. It's very easy to use. It has step-by-step directions on how to thread your punch needle. Okay, and so let's see. Let me look over at my little... Okay, I've got my wood here, so I can at least talk about that for a minute. I'll talk about this next time a little bit more, because next time is when I'll be showing you how I finish it. This one, I just wanted to talk to you about the supplies and actually, you know, the process of punching. And so I've got 2 wooden boards here. This is 9 by 9 and this is 8 by 12. And this is the 8 by 12 that I'm going to be finishing this oval on. So my patterns, I drew, if there's an oval like this one happens to fit on the 9 by 12, but it tells you if I drew within those patterns, I at least have 1 or 2 of the projects in there that will fit on one of these boards, but it's not necessary to use these boards. These can be used for cross stitch, for quilt blocks. This is what the back looks like, and I wanted this little ridge in here because then you can finish it on this side, making this the front side too. You maybe could, you know, wrap it around a finishing board like your cross stitch and stick in there with some batting so that it sticks out. You could put patchwork in there. I just wanted it, you know, versatile. So we'll talk about that later. I just kind of wanted to show you what those look like. They come painted in this color right here. That doesn't mean you can't stain them, put some dark wax or paint them a different color of paint or whatever you want to do. But I at least wanted them to come a color that you could just use right off the bat if it fit your project. Okay, so I've shown you that, showing you what the chunky thread looks like. I do use a yarn bowl, and I do wind my yarn into cakes, just like for my crochet. I've got my long, kind of pointy scissors. I've got my readers. Let's see, what else do I have around me? I think that is it. All right, so let's punch some more, and let's just kind of talk about that. So again, I just leave my tails in, okay? I typically go like this so I can kind of see what I'm doing, but I want to kind of stay away a little bit so that you can see what I'm doing in the camera. Again, I'm going on a slant here because if I go straight up and down, you won't be able to see me going in, but I like to go straight up and down. And when I'm going in a row like this against something that I've already done, if I'm going to go on a slant, let me move it this way, then I might want to slant it away from here, just so that I'm not punching into my previously looped yarns in the front. And that's all I'm doing is just making loops in the front and turning, making sure I don't, you know, have any tightness in my yarn, that I have plenty of slack. And I always start with an outline and then I fill in, just like I'm doing right here. When I outline, I might do my stitches just a little bit closer, just so that I can form a really nice line. But in the inside, I don't have them, you know, quite so close together, and it's a little bit more random. So this just reminds me of when I was young, you know, when you would color. I don't know if you guys ever colored where you would color around in your coloring book page, each piece kind of in a darker color, and then you would go lighter in the center with a more pastel kind of, you know, pressure on your crayon. You would lighten the pressure up on your crayon so it would look nice and shaded. But going that direction, you know, is what I do. So in the opening video or slideshow, I took pictures of my process in this. I first started out by doing this circle right here, and then I did that, and you know, you can see the pictures. And I just, the most thing that I want to say, you know, you can start with whatever you want, but the best thing I want to say, the best advice I want to give is to start. You never want to start with your outline. You want to start with your middle pieces so that you can outline them and fill them in around, okay? And at least I don't. I mean, there's never any straight, fast rules, and there's no punch needle police. And this is supposed to be fun. This is free form. That's why I love punch needle. It's so relaxing. It's one punch. You don't have to remember all this stuff. All you have to know is the color that you need to punch, and make sure you have enough slack in your yarn, and there you go. If for some reason that you punched a few stitches and you realized you had too much tension on your yarn and it didn't go in, just undo those few stitches and go back in and do it, but don't go in the same holes, because you don't want to punch too many holes in your fabric, because your fabric, remember, the tension of your threads and the weave of your cloth is what's keeping your loops in. So you do not want to put too many holes. You want to have just, you know, you want to have at least 3 threads of this weave in between your stitches. That's about right. Okay, and then I just keep turning. Let's see, what else do I want to say? Oh, one thing that's important too is with the needle is, see how there's different sizes here? I have mine, this little metal mark on the 5. I like the 5 height. This determines how high, how tall your stitches will be on the loops on the back. And I just, you know, I experimented with different heights and I really like the 5. But you could go shorter if you didn't want as tall as loops. If you didn't want it, you know, that kind of a look. But I like mine to look like little miniature hooked rugs because I love hooked rugs. And so that's what this is, you know, this kind of a project to me is just, that's what I want it to look like. And speaking of little miniature hooked rugs, if you're a person who does doll houses or if you're a miniaturist, wouldn't it be so cute to, like, just that alone would be a cute little rug for your dollhouse. It's really a good scale, the chunky thread is, and I've been super happy using this. I've never done any project that I felt like, you know, didn't benefit from the weight of the yarn weight of the chunky thread yarn. So as I'm just filling in right here, I'm almost to the end, and I wanted to show you what that looks like. Remember, you really can't make a mistake. You're just trying to make loops in the front, okay? There's not so many stitches per inch. There's not, you know, any of that kind of thing. And punch needle does not lend to perfect straight lines. The kind of art this is just not, doesn't lend itself to perfectly straight anything. It's just free form. It's however you want to do it. If you don't want to go around like this, you could go back and forth straight across if you wanted to. When you turn it around to the front, I'm finished with this, all you see is those tight loops. You really can't, sometimes you may be able to see the direction, but most of the time you can't. Okay, so once again, I'm finished with that. I'm going to take my scissors, trim that even right there, pull my needle out. And so all I have left now for the front of this is to do the chamomile. Let me see if I grab that. Okay, this is my chamomile color. Okay, and that's what I'm going to do the whole outside with. But you could pick raisin if you wanted to, which is a dark color, which would look totally different. You don't have to use the same background that I did. I don't know if I'm going to paint my wood or if I'm going to keep it the same color or whatever. We'll talk about that in the next video. I just kind of want to show you, see how this is where I've stopped and started. So these loops, you can see there's texture, there's a little bit higher. All you do is just trim those evenly, okay? And so you can go around and do that, you know, after each color if you want, or you can wait until you're at the very end of all your punching before you do that. Another thing I keep in my kit, in my little bag of goodies here and tools, is chopsticks or a toothpick. And so sometimes you can see, let's see, for instance here, see that Riley Aqua going into that denim? All you have to do is pull that back and kind of push the denim color over there, right? And you've fixed that line if you're really particular. But again, this is not anything that lends itself to perfectly straight lines. But you can take this toothpick or a chopstick and just kind of move things around, trim anything off even, okay? And I can see a little green one right here that kind of is sticking up a little bit more. When you are punching, you want to put your needle all the way down the shank of the needle till it hits that handle. And I just hold mine how I hold a pencil. That's the most comfortable for me. But I'll just show you over here outside of the design. You don't want to just punch halfway in. You want to punch all the way down, okay? And then you kind of drag your tip. I'm not lifting it up like this because look what happens. Then I'm having loops here at the top, okay? I punch and then I'm just kind of dragging the tip, kind of grazing that fabric and going along, okay, like this. And each time I'm going all the way down. Now, because I'm going all the way down, that means all my loops are going to be the same height on the other side. If I am not going all the way down each time, then they're going to be kind of shorter, taller, that kind of thing. And let me see if I can find my notes. I wanted to, so see, you can just pull that out. That's outside of the area, so we don't need to worry about that. But I did write down a few notes to remember to tell you about maybe some tips or some troubleshooting. So, you know, as you practice punch needle, you may run across a few issues. And so here are some questions that, you know, I get asked several times. How do I keep my loops from unraveling? So remember, if the loops are coming out, you may be using the wrong cloth, because the cloth weave is what keeps it in, okay? That tension. You may be pulling your needle up too far, just like what I told you, from the surface in between stitches, okay? So you just kind of want to graze that needle. And then the most important thing is, I find when I run into problems, again, is the tension. You may have just way too much tension on your yarn. It may get caught on this, or it might just be stuck in the bowl or something. You didn't pull it out. You don't want any tension. You want to be able to have that free and always have plenty of slack in your yarn so that it doesn't pull against the needle at any time. That's what, you know, causes some problems. And then third, make sure that you're holding the punch needle tool with the slot opening. Right here, there's the slot opening. There's the back. You want the slot opening facing the direction that you're making the stitches. I typically stitch towards me, or because I'm right-handed, or towards the left just a little bit on an angle, but I'm always can see that eye, just like I said in the very beginning. I can see that, and my yarn goes behind it. And that's, if your needle is turned around and you're trying to punch going in that direction, I mean in this direction, and if your opening is facing, let me put my notes down. If your opening is facing that way and you're punching backwards, it's not going to stay in. So that could be a problem as well. And then I already told you the tip about the height. If your loops are not the same height, you may not be going all the way down into your cloth. Okay? And so I hope that answers those questions. I hope that you can see just how easy it is. Now I have these tails that I typically will just trim down to about here. There's no need ever to make any knots. There's no knots at all. I just keep these tails up here, and then I will show you in my next video. I will have this all finished. I'm going to keep it on the hoop and show you exactly how I take it off the hoop, what I do to finish it, and you know how I'm going to mount it on the wood. And so that's what I'll show you in my next video. I hope you have fun experimenting with this, whether you choose larger pattern, smaller, it just doesn't matter. It's all the same stitch. It's all just as relaxing, and I hope you have fun with it. And thanks for watching. I'll see you next time and chat with you later.